Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creator
Howdy.
Spotlight. I'm Hassan Salman, your usual host, and I'm here with returning Creator Spotlight host, Mike Geig. What's up, Mike?
You know what? Just living the dream. Every day gets better.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good intro. So for anyone who's not aware, I think most people know you already, Mike. You know, you've been around. What do you do at Unity?
So I thought I was going to have a really good answer to that question, and then I forgot to come up with one. So I am part of the advocacy team, and so we work with developers. We give presentations. We educate. We learn. We bring that feedback internally and do all that stuff. It's a really odd role.
It's awesome though. It's super deeply ingrained in the community, and I that's what we do in the show as well. We have an awesome show today with an amazing giveaway. We'll be speaking to the developers behind Core Keeper, which is the beautiful 2D pixel art, mining, crafting, surviving, and fighting game. There's just a whole lot of features in this game. It's incredible. And we'll be looking under the hood, learning about the game's design philosophies, the 2D lighting, the art direction, tile streaming, and then finally how they implemented Dots multiplayer. So make sure to stick around till later in the show, where we'll open a window for people to enter into the giveaway, and you can win one of 5 keys. So stay tuned for that. That'll happen at a random point in this show. So stay tuned. Before we bring on our guests, let's look at a trailer for the game. Hello, everyone. How's it going, team?
Hello.
Good.
Hi. It's going great.
Yeah, it's great to have you all here. I think this is one of the first times we have like 4 people from the team come on, so that's kind of amazing. It's like a lot of representation from the team. So we'll do a round of introductions. We could start just in order. We'll start with Sven.
Yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Sven Tole. I'm the CEO and also lead animator at Bugstorm. You can check out my stuff on Twitter if you like, on Sven_Tole. And my role in the company is, as a CEO, is to take care of the production side of things and running the business on day-to-day operations. And as a lead animator, creating characters and effects. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you, Sven. Thanks for joining us. And Max?
Yeah, so I am Max. I am the technical director at Bugstorm. I do a lot of some of the core systems like automation and like electricity, and multiplayer is something I'm mainly responsible for. And I'm sadly not as active on Twitter as some of the others, but feel free to give me a follow.
Now's a better time.
Maybe that will change.
Exactly. I was going to say now's a better time to start than ever. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's
Everyone
right. Join
follow
us.
Max on Twitter right now.
Encourage him. Encourage him.
Maybe not too much. Yeah.
We'll drop his Twitter in the link. Thanks for joining us, Max. And David, how about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm David Lindqvist, and I work as a gameplay director at on Core Keeper. So I work with game design and the gameplay implementation, basically taking Frederick's creative ideas and translating them into technical issues for Max to solve. But yeah, I'm very much a glue between many of the parts, getting all the stuff together.
Amazing. Okay, I can't wait to hear more about like the design philosophies and all of that stuff we're going to get into shortly. Yeah. And yourself, Frederick?
Yes, so hi, I'm Fredrik Prentere, and you can also follow me on Twitter. I post quite a lot about Core Keeper and Pugstorm and try to do it as often as I can. So if you're interested in kind of knowing more about the day-to-day work that we're doing, you can follow me there. But I'm the Chief Executive Officer and the Creative Director at Pugstorm. So I basically, I think David phrased it kind of well there. I come up with different ideas that I kind of want the other guys to solve.
Nice.
So yeah, that's my main role, and then recruitment and building the team and these things are more of the CEO role.
Amazing. So you come up with ideas, and then Dave is your filter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of phrasing it.
He said they're going, no, that's just not going to happen. Just
I love that. So as you already mentioned, for anyone who's not aware, the latest game is Core Keeper, and the studio is Pugstorm, and the studio's been around for a little while. So maybe you can give us a little history of the studio and how you got to this point, how it started, and yeah, where you're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a long story, actually. I would say it started with the first day on university here in Linköping, where we stay. Oh. So I met David and Max on my first day.
Wow.
And then since then we've kind of been awesome. Tagging along and making weird projects and studying together. And from that point on, we made a number of different games, such as Clinique and Wallflower, 2 very early projects that we made. That kind of had these top-down aspects that Core Keeper also has. And then I met some other guys who were working on other parts of game development. So our art director, Julian, was a fantastic guy that we started making a game with. And after working together some time with hobby projects, we eventually made a game called Radical Rabbit Stew.
Okay.
And that won a local, game awards competition, and then we got in contact with you guys at Unity as well with that game. Actually, you guys gave us, Unity Pro licenses for free for like 1 year or so. That was a lot of. That was pretty nice. And
what year was this at this point?
I think this is 2017, maybe.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, 2017, I think. So after that, we got a publisher contract and could actually, complete this game and make it a business out of it. So that's when we formally started the company.
Yeah.
And then we also brought in Sven, who's here today, and he's been doing such an amazing job, the production, and is my kind of right hand with the business side of things as well. And a lot of new other different people has been joining as well. So we have an amazing team. I think that's kind of the core thing with Core Keeper. No pun intended there.
Very good, very good. I would love to hear a bit. So you kind of brushed on the games you worked on before. You mentioned Clinikin, which was the first one. So I'd love to. We have some footage of that. If we could put that up, and maybe you could just speak to it for a little bit, and then we'll walk through the history from Clinikin, and then we'll look at Wallflower, and then because I'd love to learn a bit more about the games. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Clinikin. Yeah.
So Cliniken was just a hobby project that me, Max, and David did during our when we were studying to become computer science engineers.
It was this weird Reddit thread, right? That you found first, like that had this idea. Okay, I like a clinic which kind of punish you in a way, like to make you like what doesn't kills you make you stronger kind of thing.
Okay.
So you're in that clinic more or less. So it's that's why it fires cannonballs at you and other stuff.
Wait, your clinics don't fire cannonballs at you in Sweden?
That's not normal over there?
That's oh man.
Clinic.
It's a clinic for near-death experiences. There's an awesome thread. So there was like a subreddit where they kind of had these different funny plots for different stories, and I thought this one was one of them. I was like, wow, I need to make a game about this.
Oh, this
is that game.
So this started from like a story, and then you built a game off the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love that. I love hearing about the different ways, like different inspirations for games. Not just being inspired by other games, but being inspired by other mediums as well.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's very cool. Okay, cool.
Instead of having a pharmacy, they have a harmacy.
Oh, man.
That was bad.
You came up with that on the spot?
That's a
man,
better
so
man.
terrible. All right, I'm gonna leave. See y'all later.
Yeah, I liked it. That's a great title, actually. Okay, cool. And so after building Clinican, so how big was the team at this point?
It was just me, Max, and David.
Just three.
Having
Okay.
fun. Yeah, we were just having fun.
And then directly after this, Wallflower.
Yeah, Wallflower was another project that was kind of running for some time that me and Julian, who is the art director, had been working on.
Yeah.
So this and Wallflower, which is the Wallflower's game you'll see now, these two games actually shared, a lot of the code base because they kind of had this top-down framework that makes it kind of easy to make these types of games.
I see. Very different art style, though, but similar perspective. Okay.
Yeah. Like this was because like when you make games, when you start making games, you kind of realize, okay, so I need to know how to draw, I need to know how to make music, I need to know, there's so many different things about games that you need to make. So the art you see here, my first attempt at, okay, let's try making art for a game, and I quickly realized that it's not feasible to make art for a whole game, so I brought in Julian to help me with that. So he's been doing the animations for this game, for example, and a lot of the concept art.
Okay. So the team grew a bit for this project.
Oh, this was like a side project with just me and Julian. So we were just.
Oh, it was just you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so it was two different projects. Actually, Julian didn't know Max and David at this point, so I kind of introduced them to each other at a later stage.
You were forming little small teams, and then you made the master team. And
merging them.
And just to clarify, Julian isn't here on the stream today, but Julian is the art lead on Core Keeper.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's the art director of the whole company, so his art, like the visuals, the vision of the visuals is all his.
Okay, I see. And if Julian, if you're in the chat, shout out to Julian. So then after that, directly to Radical Rabbits.
Yes. So Radical Rabbits was the next project.
I see. There it is.
Exactly.
And so how does the gameplay for? What was the inspiration for this? Because it just looks amazing.
So this was another parallel project, actually.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And there was a guy. His name is Ilias Iorio, and he had this idea of making a puzzle game with rabbits and these stews. And I thought it was like an amazing idea, and it was really fun to play around with conceptually. So we decided to make a game out of it. And Ilias left after some time in the development. This game took us like 3-4 years actually, because we were studying while we were making it, and we were doing a lot of different things, and we were course assistants in game design courses at the university, all these things at the same time. So it took a lot of time. So that's kind of where I started merging in Max, David, and Sven into the project, because when Ilias left, there was this big gap, this void that he needed to fill. So that's where they came in. So that's from that point on, us five have been working, also together, basically.
Okay, and so you wrapped up the project as a team of 5.
Exactly.
Okay,
well, and really a turning point for the company in terms of like we had, a publishing deal. This was a proper launch instead of just random university projects.
Got it. Okay, so this was like what felt to you like the studio's first release, like first big release or something like that.
Absolutely.
As a studio, It's cool to see that sort of organic growth too. How these things have come together. Yeah,
exactly. The goal was kind of, to show ourselves that we can make a game and release it on Nintendo Switch, on PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam, and pull through with the whole project from start to finish. So that was an important goal for us to show that we can do that.
And what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's important to have like these steps to take, like start with these school projects and build up to something. I don't think we would be able to done it to start like with Core Keeper as a first project.
Okay.
You need to like build up that team and that level of competence. Yeah.
I think that's great advice. I bet like you also had to kind of build a repertoire with each other, right? Like the kind of dynamic learning how to work with each other. Was that part of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And
I think that part was pretty smooth, actually. In terms of also like this is even like when Fredrik brought in me and David, for example, and then Sven also in Radical Rabbits, it was very very good chemistry from the start. Like me and David and Fredrik knew each other a lot from university, so So it wasn't a lot of work in getting the team dynamic to work properly. I would say it was more or less a bunch of friends making games.
Okay. And what was the gameplay of Radical Rabbits? What was the gameplay essentially for that?
David, do you want to? Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the idea with Radical Rabbits to you is that you smash rabbits with spoons into pots, and they fly away, and you get scores. Nice. It's very much inspired by like this SNES Mario, Super Mario.
Okay.
From SNES, where there's like it's a little bit more linear, where you have these levels that you complete doing puzzles. The concept was quite unique. But it has been very well received. We focus a lot in that game on like the feeling of the game as well. Like it doesn't really even matter if the puzzle is good or fun or hard. It's just fun to smash around rabbits in pots with all the UC effects and feelings of the controls in the game, which I think is one of the keys to the game being very well received.
And did you come to that this game concept through experimentation? Did you just do lots of different prototypes until you decided, okay, we're smashing rabbits with spoons and pots? Where how did you get to that point of deciding this is what we're working on for the next 3-4 years?
It's a very iterative process,
Yeah.
It's kind of when you get a feeling of what's working or not. That's kind of when you get to decide what you want to do. And the same thing has been true with Core Keeper. Things change during the development because you kind of discover things about the game idea or the game direction or the concept as you are developing the game. It's kind of as if the game is developing itself in one way.
I see.
Yeah.
I want to point out something that was just said, though, because I think that's important. When you said, like, it doesn't matter if the puzzle's not good or this or that or the next, as long as, like, hitting rabbits feels really good. A lot of people, they opt for these really elaborate or very complex gameplay features or mechanics that fall short, when really it just takes that crunch. Just hitting the rabbits is fun. Core, everything else doesn't really matter because this is so much fun. And you find that thing and build on it, and you're going to have something pretty cool.
So kind of like approaching it like a toy almost. Detail
it's fun
outward.
to use.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Something that is very repetitive in the game. For example, in Core Keeper, we have the part about mining walls that needs to feel really, really good because you will be doing it a lot.
Over and over.
Just spending that bit of extra time. Just spending that bit of extra time making sure that feels good gives so much value.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like that addictive hook you'd get like if you're like slamming trees in Fortnite or like when you're mining in like RuneScape or something like that. You're just like it's something you have to do a lot, right? And you just need makes sense. And then so moving on, like after Radical Rabbits, what was the process to getting to Core Keeper?
So we had a bunch of different game ideas. First, we actually explored another game idea that was more a story-driven RPG-like game. Mm-hmm. We still wanted to do top-down games because, if you look at Clinique and Wallflower, Radical Rabbits 2, and Core Keeper, all of these have very common elements. So we can kind of reuse different parts from the games and just improve and iterate. That's kind of one of our main philosophies, is to iterate and not try to reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
That game kind of fell flat after some months of playing around with it. And so basically then we started working on Core Keeper and prototyping it. And we had one initial GIF that we kind of posted on Twitter and on Imgur that went viral. And we kind of knew we had something that was very interesting. It's also very... like if you think about the game direction and the kind of the game design of the game, it's very thought out. It's not like we started making the game 1 month after we started thinking about it. It's like a game idea that we've been thinking about for many years.
I see.
We were very confident in the game idea when we started developing it. So
was it something you were talking about while working on Radical Rabbits? Like, hey, after this we could work on this like mining survival game?
Parts of it. I think the first thing with the Core Keeper that kind of hits you is the lighting. There's this darkness and there's this real-time lighting that is really cool and has all these cool effects. That's actually something that I remember me and David, I think Max was also in the conversation somehow. We kind of experimented with that in like 2016 or 2015 when we were making Kliniken. So I have some screenshots somewhere of a very, very early prototype of that lighting system. And then we kind of redid it when we started working on Core Keeper. But all these ideas were there from 6 or 7 years ago.
Wow.
So, for example, you can see the Dungeon Keeper inspirations in Core Keeper. The core is kind of like the heart in Dungeon Keeper, and those are ideas that like. I loved Dungeon Keeper when I was a kid. We've been playing Dungeon Keeper, me, David, and Max also during our university studies and the multiplayer. I'm not sure if we got it working, but we tried at least. So, I mean, these are ideas that have been there for a very long time for us.
I mean, one example of an idea that didn't really got it. And like you said, when we talk about Dungeon Keeper, that was kind of an inspiration. We kind of wanted more Dungeon Keeper in the start, but kind of realized it was hard to it evolved a bit from it in a sense that we obviously you don't have any minions to control in Core Keeper. So that was a part where we were being very iterative in the process, just seeing where does this design take us, like where do we find the fun in this game, in a sense.
That's super interesting. So did you start trying to have minions at first, and then decide, okay, no, you're going to control a single character? Did you actually prototype those elements?
You were supposed to control a single character. Always, but you had these minions that were helping you, kind of like in Dungeon Keeper. Yeah, maybe David, you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, it's a long time ago since we worked in that part of the game now, but we tried many different approaches, and I think my one big main question was like, what's the purpose of the core? And then, are we going with the Dungeon Keeper approach? Are you defending it? Is it even on your side? Is it an enemy? Is it the source of an energy, or what is the core actually? Yeah. And it changed a lot throughout the development. But I guess in the end, we took quite a bit of inspiration from Valheim that was released kind of recently, and during our development of this, where they had these runes and you need to find the bosses and kill the bosses and bring back their heads or some token from them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We took that kind of same inspiration for our statues, where you need to, in the start around the core, find and kill the bosses and putting the crystals to activate it. But yeah, in the end, what the core is and what's going to happen with it, that's well, we will see. We haven't come to the part of the game yet. So
all right.
It's a secret. It's a secret.
Yeah.
And that's why I've never figured out what the statues are for, because the bosses just keep killing me. I've never... This gets me every time. I need to get better.
I think it goes to show the open-mindedness of the design process, where you had these initial ideas, these core ideas, the inspiration from Dungeon Keeper, but then it was this iterative process. You were inspired by things that were coming out during development. You were open to change, and it seems like that was crucial for this project.
Well, and it looks like too, and from the conversations we've had before, not only was there this inspiration, right? And there's one thing to be inspired, but then to make it something that's truly your own and not be like just a copycat, right? You came up with your own design philosophies that you had mentioned before, and it would actually be kind of cool to talk about those a little bit. These design philosophies, if you want to run down those maybe a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say those have also been kind of iteratively been developed. These are also something that's dynamically changing, and they are very much motivated by things that we really think are true in terms of what gives value to the player, what gives some incentives to the player to want to socialize and play the game with others and share his or her creations. So one of them, is just that we are making the game as a more creative sandbox. We don't want to pull the creativity from the player, but we want to give it to the player. So you can think about different game design aspects then, that instead of like putting a limit on what you can do with the terraforming in the game, instead we try to make that as open as possible, and that's something we're expanding on because we want to give this creative freedom to the player. We also have many other ones, similarly to that. We kind of want it to be very easy to get started. You should just be able to drop in. You should be able to come from, any type of game. So you can see the game has similarities to many other games just for that reason. We have deliberately made it so that if you come from a Zelda game, you'll feel like, okay, I've seen these things. Or if you come from Minecraft, this feels like Minecraft. Oh, this feels like Terraria. All these different games. And that's deliberate just to get it very easy for you to start playing it if you have experience from these other games.
And how important do you think that is, that familiarity? Like, that's interesting. I actually haven't heard another developer say that before. Like, trying to, like, the different entry points and trying to make it comfortable for people coming from different places. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important if you want your game, or at least a game like Core Keeper, to get the attention that it has gotten, Because when people see it, they can very easily pitch it to their friends. They can say like, oh, it's like, Zelda, but with mining. Or they can say, oh, it's like Terraria, but top-down 2D. Or they can say like, oh, it's Stardew Valley, but it's in a cave. They have all these different comparisons. And all of them are true in one sense. And it makes it very easy for people to share the game with others and kind of, get an idea of what the game is about. So I think it has helped a lot with the marketing in that aspect.
I see. I think it would be a good time to jump to see like a bit of the gameplay of the game. Yeah. And we can like talk about the design as we're looking at the gameplay a bit. So maybe I believe Sven, you're going to be playing the game, right?
David.
David. Yeah. David's going to be playing the game. Yes. So let's jump to David's screen. Yes.
I think that's my screen.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so I guess I can just explain shortly to begin with what people are seeing here. So this is what it looks like when you start the game, when you get through the character creation and the bit of introduction and so on. You get the character spawns here in the world, in this dark cave. And you have to start by crafting some torches out of the wood, of the roots around you. And the roots themselves are actually quite interesting. I mentioned that because that was like, when we started working on the game, like, okay, these kind of crafting games typically have wood from cutting trees that you craft with. Very, very kind of basic, common approach. But how does trees grow in caves? Well, kind of don't, or do they? So then we went like, okay, let's do a root system instead. And you get wood from roots.
That's smart.
Roots to craft. But there are trees in the game as well later on. So people who like trees, don't worry. Find them.
And I know we're not quite seeing it just yet, right? Or maybe picking up on it, and we'll talk about the lighting later. But there are, as you had mentioned, there's a lot of like survival-esque games, like your Minecrafts and things like that, where you're gathering and building and stuff. But to my knowledge, most of those, all of those, have like a day cycle. Things just naturally get light, and in this game, you're underground. So there is no day cycle, so you have to provide all of your light, and that was a very interesting change to it. Like normally you're just like, it's dark, I'll just wait, whatever. But no, that like you got to figure it out. You got to move forward, and if you're out of light, then you got to figure that out too.
Yeah, exactly, indeed. It's a funny you mentioned it. The whole day-night cycle. That's something we've been working with a lot because you mentioned many games has it, and it's something we kind of wanted for the game. As well, because I think that adds a lot to the game loop, how it works, how you have to go back to your base at the night and so on. And it might very well be that we add something in similar terms, not a day and night cycle, but some sort of cycle to the game in the future, possibly if we figure something out. But I think I'll play the game and let Frederick or Sven or anyone else talk. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck and not progress anything.
Sounds good. I think it's also a level of satisfaction in just entering this cave, and it's completely darkness. And it's up to your control to craft the torches and make it habitable in a way, and kind of master the cave, so to say.
Yeah.
And so you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and if you're not dropping a torch, it'll just go all the way to pitch black, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Okay. I like what you say about mastering the cave. Was that like something that came early, where this feeling of like almost it's kind of becoming a home or something like that, or like you're expanding your base within that cave, and at a certain point you just like you feel like you own a big part of it, or how?
Yeah, that's something we talked about quite early that it's important when returning to your base that this actually feels, how do you say it, lived in. It shouldn't feel like the wild. Like
I see.
the wild is when you go out and gather resources, and when you come back, you need to return the resources you gathered and feel this level of comfort in your home.
Right.
So that's actually brings into an interesting point where we talked about like early design ideas about the game was that it should be actually a defense game, like people were attacking your core. And a big problem we had there is, okay, but how about your base? What happens then? Like, will they just come destroy your entire base? And we were wrestling with that idea a lot. And because it feels terrible, like you're spending hours building this beautiful base, and then one enemy appears and just destroys it all.
Right.
So what we ended up in is basically that the core doesn't attract enemies at all. Yeah.
I could imagine feeling like I'm under constant stress if, you know, I'm out exploring and my base could get attacked at any time, and I have to like manage both those things, and I'm never feeling safe. Like, it's great to, in a game where there's so much wild to explore, to have a place to just feel safe, like a safe house.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mentioned before, like games like Dragon Quest Builder and Dragon Quest Builders 2, right? You build up this elaborate base, and then at the end of every chapter, a boss appears and just wrecks it as you're fighting them. And then you have to like put your base back together. You're like, this sucks. Like, you know, so much time spent trying to keep the boss from, but they always do. And you're just like, darn it. So I appreciate that, because I hate, or even in Minecraft, coming home and be like, oh, hard day, I'm going to go hit the hay, and there's a creeper in my bed. Boom. And then my house is wrecked. It's like, So
there can still be enemies that kind of finds its way back to your base in a way. But we've definitely toned that down a lot since the early days. I remember one of the really early streams where we had, I think it was Yogscast that did the stream. And they were just endlessly dying against slimes. We were like, okay, maybe we should just tone down the enemies a bit.
When you first, speaking of like streams and showcasing the game, when you first showcased the GIF of the game, what did it show? Like, what were you showing off? Which aspect of the game?
It was just, the player moving through a dark cave, and then chomping up like a part of it so that it opened up the lighting, into the room. And then inside of the room, there was like some water, and I think there was a small fire in the middle, and the player just stands next to the fire. It's very cozy. And that's where it ended. So it kind of gave like a small little story of this mining person going through the cave.
I think that's super fascinating, because that kind of like, that specific aspect really resonated with players, obviously, since it went viral. So did that like inform your decisions going forward? Like, okay, we need to lean into this aspect because this resonated with people, or?
No, I wouldn't say it did, because we kind of, it's more that it strengthened our hypothesis of what would work, we had the feeling that that's, what was going to happen.
Okay.
So it's more strengthened that idea.
You nailed it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. It's funny, like, so you mentioned that, like, gave this story in a GIF or a GIF, don't hate me, however you pronounce it, whatever. And we just had someone actually in the chat say, hey, is there plans to add more story? And I know one of the design pillars you had mentioned, I think you have an image later that has some of these design pillars in it, is like this mysteriousness. So I don't know if you want to maybe just mention like the story and or how you're approaching the story, because I know that was a kind of a key thing for you.
Yeah. So one of the like game design pillars we have for the game is gameplay first. So we always place first is the full control of the player. We don't want the game to take control for you and tell you a story. Rather, we want to place gameplay first, and then the story is sort of like how do you say it, like a side dish to that. Okay. So we tell the story through different various ways. Environmental storytelling, we have storytelling for enemies, we have storytelling for items. So yeah, there's a lot to learn about the game, but it's never, so to say, shoved in your face. Yeah.
And how is it delivered? Are you like reading entries or like voice note recordings? Like how do you deliver the story?
So it can be interpreted mostly by the player. One way is to actually read the description of items,
I see.
various valuable items you can find and so on. Another way is to find these scenes throughout the world that are spread out that tell a story just in the way they look, like in the sprite work. You can just look at the sprite and kind of understand what has been happening here.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So some visual storytelling in the
Exactly.
world and things like that. That's fantastic. Maybe we can swap to your screen actually, so we can look at those design pillars. We're going in deep into the cave right now.
I like what was just posted in chat here. The narrative delivery is done specifically through the Discord lore channel.
That's very true. That's very true. We're reading the lore Discord channel like every day.
That's amazing.
Is that helping you? Like when people come up with the ideas, be like, "That's a good idea. I'm going to work that one."
Is that
that's
the
how
fan
we're
fiction
making
channel?
the story, you know, we're grabbing the best ideas from the lore channel.
That's right. We don't even have a story. We're just going to take the best. Yeah.
Community can give us the story. But yeah, so maybe we should swap to the other screen, to Max's screen. I think you have the image of the pillars, right?
Yeah, I think this is
There
fine.
you go.
Amazing. Okay, cool. So maybe you can walk us through these. And were these all defined very early on, or was it again the iterative process and you were figuring out your pillars as you went?
Iterative process, but I would say that it's more like this is a summary of how we were already designing and thinking about games. You know, it's not that okay. So here are the pillars that we should have. It's more like okay, so we want to make a game in which the player wants to share what he or she is doing. We want to make a game in which there's like a huge creative element. We think these would, ideas would fit Core Keeper, and from that end, we came up with the pillars. So it's not in the other direction. We didn't come up with the pillars and then made a game. It's more like a contract for the developers internally. Like this is what we are doing.
I see. Makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes we have discussions internally about okay, what should we do? Is this a good idea or not? And it's always good to have like a kind of common. I mean, some common pillars. Call it the constitution if you want. Kind of this is what the game is supposed to be. This is kind of what we can lean on. So if you can say that this is a good idea because it follows the game pillars, it's kind of a strong argument for doing something.
So it just sets everybody in the same direction, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And maybe you can walk us through these.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about all of them actually already.
Okay. It's true. Yes, we did.
Yeah. I'm not sure what we would like to
maybe
add.
function over form is not something we didn't. I don't think we necessarily went over that one.
Oh, yeah, we can. And also, I don't think we talked too much about the simple functions can form complex and more efficient processes. Like a very important foundation for Core Keeper is thinking about things as combinations of other things rather than having like a bunch of different mini games that are just standalone. It's more about, okay, so what happens if you combine a chest with some automation things, and then we have some enemies that enter the room, and you have all these emergent scenarios that happen due to these very simple rules that interact with each other.
It's kind of like what we said before about hitting the rabbits has to feel good, or breaking the walls has to feel good. These very simple things, complexity, for complexity's sake doesn't really add much, but simplicity added together to make complexity is where it's really core.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we kind of accept that we can't just kind of figure out the whole like super complex systems fully. So we just create these simple systems that kind of interact to get complex behavior that way instead.
Yep, exactly.
Do we have that? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to ask if Sven wants to talk a little bit about function over form.
Sure.
Maybe wants to think about that.
Yeah. So I brought it up slightly before. It's basically that we place gameplay first. So if you have to choose, let's say you have the choice, you can either have the animation look really good, or you can have it feel really good moving around. It's like pressing the keys on your keyboard. We always choose the option that feels best for the player rather than looking the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe another. It seems to me from what we spoke about, like having so much darkness and negative space was another example where it's like maybe it would have looked better if you were to show more parts of the environment, but you're like the experience is about having lots of things kind of like be shrouded in darkness, things like that.
Yeah, I think it also makes a lot of the screenshots look more unique. It's kind of
true.
It focuses the eye, right?
Yeah, it
that's
focuses
true.
the eye quite a lot on this kind of center, or where there is light. So
A lot of clarity there.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Okay.
So do we want to take, or maybe I'm jumping the gun. Do we want to? We talked about this GIF, whatever. Sorry, that went viral. Do we have that? Are we able to see that?
Cool.
There we go. And someone in chat asked, when is the giveaway? I will say soon.
Yes.
So yes, don't go anywhere.
Yeah, so this was very deliberately crafted, this GIF, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of thinking about showcasing all the different aspects of the visuals that we wanted to build upon in Core Keeper. You kind of see the very lighting.
I think we named it something like, or do you remember what the name was? It was like, would you like to play a combination of Dungeon Keeper and some other games that I don't remember?
Zelda and Minecraft, maybe it was.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna ask. So, like, what did you actually say in the tweet with the GIF? Because that's like you were kind of teasing it. So, okay, so that was it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say this GIF kind of was like, so I'd been playing the game in preparation for this, and I didn't know you could put ground in the water to make land bridges. I'd been building actual bridges to go anywhere, and once I saw this image, I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like I've been doing this wrong the whole time." Oh my god! So.
And I see the chat is asking about the spoon here, the number 2 there. That's actually a spoon from Radical Rabbit Stew. So this is, we basically took Radical Rabbit Stew, removed a bunch of stuff, and then we slapped on the new Core Keeper tech. And
you realize now
so you
you're
have a spoon, actually.
Now everyone's going to be looking for the spoon in game.
There is no spoon. There
is no spoon, yeah.
Where is spoon?
The icons for number 3 and 4, that's also icons from Radical Rabbit Stew, not from Core Keeper 2.
Yeah.
That's one.
Nice.
That's a common thing, I think, in studios where moving from one game to the other, you use placeholder assets from the old games to fill things in, right? Yeah.
One of the things I think is really, neat about this image, obviously went viral, and it's fairly short, and so in a very limited amount of time, it really speaks to the aesthetic and the feel and the lighting and the sense that you wanted to capture in this game, and it would be cool to spend some time, digging into that, like what these the aesthetic inspirations, the decisions, to make it look like this specifically. Where'd that come from?
So it comes from many different directions, I would say. Of course, we looked at Dungeon Keeper. I mentioned that one before. So it's kind of this top-down game, these walls and the light is kind of similar in many ways. And then we had this indirect lighting approach that we had been thinking about for some time and experimenting with earlier, that we wanted to try out. And that actually helps a lot with the gameplay as well, because if you don't have this indirect lighting, the light is actually bouncing on the walls and on the floor and so on. That makes it kind of hard actually to navigate. So it was a very more important technology to have. So yeah, this was just some aspects. Maybe David or Sven or Max wants to add some to that.
Yeah, the way we started on this whole project, we had some ideas initially of what it was going to be, but it was also just a matter of we wanted to try and make because Radical Rabbit Stew was in 2D, like the engine was completely 2D, and we wanted to just try out making it into 3D, because we knew there was opportunities to just do stuff in 3D, even if it wasn't just the lighting and Core Keeper, but just in general to do things in 3D. So that's kind of where we started and started changing things. And then I think at some point through that process, we just tried to disable the light and just add some light sources, and this looks cool. We shared GIFs on Discord, and then we should do a GIF that we post on social media or something about this. And so we tried to quickly combine that together with the assets and stuff we had. I think what you see in that GIF is pretty much what existed in the game at that point. There wasn't so much more at that point, but it had what it needed: the water reflections and the lightning and the digging.
And did you always know you wanted to go for this kind of modernized retro look, where you have traditional pixel art, right? I don't think pixels are even rotating or anything. I'm not sure, but and then you have but then you have the soft lighting and you have reflections, things you wouldn't have seen in those retro games. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. That was from the start. We kind of looked at the team and kind of what we were great at, and also what we could bring from Radical Rabbit Stew. And also think pixel art is amazing in the sense that it allows us to kind of iterate quite quickly on different assets. It's not as if you're making a 3D game and you have to, have different, you need a normal map, a mesh, textures, and blah blah blah. In Core Keeper and Radical Rabbit Stew, we can make an assets very quickly, and so it helps us a lot in the iterative process.
Right. Yeah, and then when designing that lighting, is that what it looked like from day one? Did you start with the lighting, or?
We played around a lot with it to get it to look the way we wanted. I think it has changed. If you compare that GIF to the game, at the first sight it's quite similar, but if you look closely and compare them, you see that there's quite some technical differences if you're into Unity.
I see. And was this the earliest version of the lighting, or was there something even before this, Jeff?
I think there was before. I think we had a few different iterations.
Yeah, we tried with I think one of the first lightings we tried wasn't even point lights. It was just directional light, as if it was an outside game in the sun.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
I see.
So definitely different parts to it.
For a lot of 2D games that I see, like top-down 2D that use this kind of lighting, the one that comes to mind is Monaco. The game where you're playing as these kinds of thieves, right? Yeah, exactly. And there's many, there's a few others, but this is I think the first one that I see that does top-down 2D with bounce lighting on top of that, really creating this kind of atmosphere. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you actually achieved that?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, as I mentioned, we had started to dabble with this much earlier. We actually played with this 3D approach to 2D pixel art games in 2016 or 17 or so. And at that point, we actually used Unity's ray tracing global illumination that was static. It wasn't real time. But me and David had found a blog post about an algorithm for faking indirect lighting in top-down environments where you have huge tiles basically of the world where they are rooms. So it was a 3D game. But what we realized is, we can basically transfer this to a pixel art game. And since our game is, pixel perfect, it's just a few pixels that are rendered on the screen. It's not 1080p. It's 480 times 270 pixels.
Yeah.
So we could actually use that heat equation global illumination algorithm inside of Core Keeper. So it was a very iterative process in that sense as well. A lot of different new ideas and inventions on the way, but that blog post was very helpful. I can't find it again though. It seems to have disappeared from the internet, so I don't know who to give credit to.
You need to rewrite it. That's it.
If you ever wrote a blog on that topic somewhere on the internet, this one's for you. Congratulations. Well done.
Exactly. if you're in the chat, let us know. We'll send you a Core Keeper key. No, I'm just kidding.
And for anyone who wonders what global illumination is, you can just look at Sven's face right now. That's a pretty good example.
Yeah, maybe I should close my door. Give me a second.
It's all over.
That's right.
That's a good one.
Okay, that's good.
Kiss from the heavens.
Oh my god. So I think we Max, you have something to share, the actual equations that you've used. You have a slide for that. Maybe you can speak to that. So we'll cut to Max's screen.
Oh yeah.
Do some math.
Some quick maths.
It's in Swedish as well.
Is it?
Swedish
I
math.
see. Swedish math.
That's
good.
This is
yes,
first
of course.
draft for
Of
that.
course. You can just pull out the Google Translate app on your phone, point it at the screen.
Obviously,
Come on.
it's circa 60 by 38.
Figure it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe you could tell us what this is essentially saying, because obviously this is pretty core to it, right?
Yeah, it's changed a lot since then. David, do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to?
You can talk about it and I'll correct you when you're wrong. And that's a suitable position.
Is this what we like what we have currently, or did we? Because we did change it a bit.
It's changed a lot.
In
Oh, I see.
future iterations. So we have a few iterations on this, and this is kind of early on, I would say.
Yeah.
Hope
I
that
think it's,
paste bin link doesn't give away anything secret.
No.
Never clicked on that.
I tried actually clicking on that link and it's been removed. You know the code.
Okay.
That's too secret.
Too secret.
Yeah, so then we could like look at it in editor in scene and speak to it that way.
Yeah.
So let's cut to that. There you go. Love seeing this.
So I can just mention that this is like on the left we have the game view.
The game view,
obviously, that we was playing with earlier. But on the right we have the scene view. So this is kind of how it looks in the editor. And as you can see, when you move around, we kind of load new blocks and unload old blocks. And we do this pretty fairly quickly. It's kind of a way to optimize stuff to not have to load these like large chunks of these blocks, because the system that we use is kind of a bit slow at that. So we have like when we just to kind of explain that part. I think we can talk more about that later. We're just focusing on the lighting. As you can see, we have like when we move around and when we enter a new area here, you kind of light it up. Not sure if David or Frederick want to talk about more specifically about lighting and like kind of move around a bit.
Max, would it be possible for you to zoom in at the scene view so we can just see the character from this different perspective? So here we can actually see that it is a 3D game.
Maybe you can full screen the scene view that for the audience. Just hit Shift Spacebar. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so all the tiles, the walls and so on, you can see is built with a mesh in the runtime that we don't dynamically create. But everything else, like the objects and so on in the game, is just sprites. As you can see, the character there behind the wall. It's just sprites. But the walls and other tiles are actual meshes, 3D meshes.
Okay, are you using 3D physics with this?
Yes. Yeah, but we're kind of cutting off the y-axis, so we're only using a sort of 2D plane, but it is 3D physics engine that is used.
Okay, so this is... Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to mention this. This crack here is kind of important, because we have like a system where we kind of offset the vertices here. So like if you can see that the wall is is very uneven.
Yeah.
And like creating this crack here is kind of important for that system, because with this crack you can kind of get this first glimpse into a new room, which creates kind of a cool effect.
Oh, I see. So it's like deliberately placed.
Funny, because at first we tried to get rid of that crack. Then we're like, let's embrace it.
I see.
It's actually enhancing the game.
Very nice crack,
so we just kept it instead. And
best crack.
Yeah,
those bugs, they become features. That's how it always happens.
Oh yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yes, at first I had assumed the game was fully 2D, like flat, but it seems like it's actually a combination of 2D and 3D. And so, are you actually texturing these walls, these 3D meshes? And I'm just wondering what the camera placement is like in all of this.
I mean, the camera is something. Yeah, sure.
Unless it's complicated, but yeah, basically where you have the camera right now, that's where the camera is, and then there's some matrix transform that we do to kind of squish it a bit so that it keeps the correct ratio, because otherwise everything would be kind of skewed if you just use the regular.
So it's an orthographic camera?
Yeah, exactly. It's an orthographic camera, but then there's some matrix transforms to how it when it actually renders the view.
Yeah, it seems like you wouldn't need a perspective camera for parallaxing because things are just so close. You're in a cave, so there really isn't any far distance stuff to need it.
Yeah, this might be less more interesting for people more knowledgeable about Unity. Like there's a bunch of gizmos there, but where you see like this vertical block is kind of the camera view. And I think the one that goes parallel to it is the reflection camera, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we
have a separate camera for doing the reflections.
Yeah, that looks kind of underneath, and that's how we do the reflections, and then we render them on the water through shaders.
Oh, that's actually very interesting.
Yeah, and then for the lighting, we also have these different cameras.
There's many cameras.
There are many cameras.
Oh, really? So for the reflection, the camera is down, looking up, right? Like looking up at and I'm sure it does it ignore the environment and only renders like characters and items, maybe.
It is rendering most of the stuff, but yeah, it's ignoring some stuff to be able to see the character through the water. So it doesn't render the water, for example, on itself.
Yeah.
And you said there's a lighting camera. How does that work?
I wonder if you could show the lighting camera, because I think they are quite fun to look at.
Yeah, if you just click the camera in the scene view.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, let me find it.
Yeah.
It's not easy to find because there are so many. Like the camera system is quite hierarchical.
So I think this is the lighting camera.
The one you have selected now?
Yeah, it's the one called light camera. So I'm not sure if that actually shows what we want to show here.
People in chat are absolutely loving this. Think it's so cool. Yeah, this is so fun to see the game this way. You know.
So.
Lighting camera might be gone, right? Felix might have optimized it away.
We
did some optimization, or Felix did some optimization to get it running on the
Do you wanna see because you have the texture that is kind of in between a bit?
Yeah,
is that
cool.
what we're looking for?
Yeah, we can look at those render textures, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, let me see if I can kind of find that one.
So what was the purpose of the lighting camera?
To render the lighting, basically the indirect lighting.
And why render it separately from?
So we can
the
do
rest?
process passes on it and kind of like blur it, for example, to make it a bit more spread out. Like there are several passes we do to it to make it look the way we want, and also to even have an occlusion camera, or that might be optimized away now, but previously we had at least that uses the walls as an occluder layer to say there should not be light here.
Yes, and so you don't want that to affect the character, and you don't want it to affect other parts of the environment, like those post-process, those effects, right? Okay, great.
I do want to, while we are talking about lighting, but I do want to call out that the loading, the streaming, where the sections are popping up and disappearing as you're moving, is an incredibly important optimization technique that a lot of newer game developers don't either know how to do, or understand the full value of it to make it so your lighting calculations don't extend to infinity by having these huge levels. Nothing there besides just calling out, like the way you do it, that like the tight like popping in and popping out is so important for optimization.
Yeah, that's definitely been an iterative process as well, because in the start we had much bigger chunks that we unloaded and loaded. But eventually we ended up with this solution that, thanks to Max especially, who worked on it, that made it very...
Yeah, this is very tricky to implement, actually. So Max and David as well, they've been doing an amazing job with this. Like this is not easy.
Yeah, and also, sorry, you go, Max.
No, I was gonna mention that like it when we move around like this, it looks a bit wonky, but there is a point to actually doing this, and this is as you alluded to, that if we just update this part, then lighting around this part is the only part that has to be updated. If we were to update this whole road, then it might be a bunch of lights that need updating at the same time.
Yeah,
so it's kind of a way to optimize our selective updating of the point lights, pretty much.
Yeah, because we have implemented a solution where we cache the light information, so they're not updated every frame. That allows us to have a lot of torches and so on in the game. That was not the case before early access. Some people in the chat might remember that the performance wasn't as good back then. Of course, there's even more we can work on the performance, but after Felix improved that, we started caching the lights, which helped a lot with the performance of having a tremendous amount of lights.
Okay. And I see there's that renderer on the right.
Yeah, so here we have the indirect light, I think, especially.
Yeah, do you want to see the one that is the normal light?
I think that one is the one you had is really good, actually.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if we can find this maybe, because you have.
Yeah, there is a quad somewhere. You mean, is that what you mean? That's kind of.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this one is that. That might be like hidden a bit, but this one is definitely. Or here we have, I think, the thing I was thinking about.
So does this one update every frame essentially? Okay.
Yeah, it's just Unity doesn't update it continuously, as we show here.
In the editor, it's the editor.
Yeah, but it is updating all the time. Indeed.
So is this generating a map and then it's just projecting this on the screen essentially? Is that what's happening?
Yeah. So if you look at this and then just compare to this, is kind of like earlier in like before we have done the global illumination, I think. And then I will look at this, it's a lot smoother. So this is after the kind of...
Yeah, and like you asked about the projection. So it's not projected on the screen, but it's technically it's very similar, but it is more like a lookup image. So when all the objects, the meshes are rendered in the game, we use this mesh or this texture to look up what color or what light should I have in this.
I see. So it's not like placed and then had some kind of additive blending, but it's using this kind of... Okay.
Yeah.
And one thing you were aiming for was to make sure that the dark rooms are extremely dark. So was that worked into the equation to have bounce lighting, but not have it bounce too much so that it reaches all the rooms? And
absolutely, there was a lot of tweaking parameters. Not have that if you drag up one parameter too much, it's gonna break it.
Okay.
And also these kind of walls to not make sure that there aren't any accidental holes in meshes in certain places that lets just one pixel of light slipping through is going to break it, because then you might start seeing it spreading out.
That's right.
Yeah, that area.
But it wasn't only a technical decision, it was also a game design decision. Mainly driven by Frederick, that we wanted to have this experience where you mine a wall and then suddenly it pops open and the lighting bleeds into this new room and you say, whoa, it's a whole new area here.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually curious, and I don't know how much of this you can talk about, but so the ground, you can break obviously pieces of it, and so I don't know if these are separate meshes or if you're just doing the deformation real time, but if they're separate meshes or the seams where two meshes meet, like how did you prevent the light bleeding or light leaking? Because I know that's really difficult to do. I don't know if that's something you're able to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there isn't like one specific solution to it. It's more like just tweaking the heck out of the parameters and adding special cases to where it's needed everywhere. Just trying to tweak all the... We are using the Unity's light sources to tweaking there are values there for like the bias parameters and so on. Tweaking. And we're also very careful, like when the light that is on the player and on torches and so on, they are carefully positioned so that they aren't ending up too close to the wall, because that might cause it to bleed through or render through. So we're making sure that the player can't walk too close to the walls as well.
There you go, clever. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to show one thing real quick.
Please.
And that is, if we look at the map, that is kind of continuously updating as you kind of explore the world. But as you can see, we can't see anything here, and that's because you don't have light. So that's kind of a fancy solution we have, that we actually look at this texture here to see like, okay, is this something we can actually see? If so, then we should update the parts of it.
So the mini map is also doing a lookup on the texture. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And there's why it's important to place
that.
torches. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't want the player to kind of see on the minimap or the map things before you see them yourself with your own eyes. So that was also like an important design aspect.
That makes sense. And I like that you're utilizing these like textures for more than one purpose, to actually project the lighting, but then also feeding it to the minimap. That's very smart.
Yeah. And we're aiming to work with creatures and enemies also in the game to use this lookup even more, so that you can have certain enemies that are attracted to different light sources or stuff like that. And that's something I think is very unique, because not a lot of games can do that, because they don't have this kind of lookup texture with indirect lighting that we have.
And when you do it this way, I guess it leads to things being more optimized, because it's like one solution, one size fits all kind of solution.
Yeah. It doesn't cost anything extra for us to do it, so it's very cool. And maybe Max, you can talk about the pheromone system that we have as well, because I think that's pretty cool too.
But that's the first time I've ever heard pheromone system, and I really want to hear about this.
We have a lot of cool stuff in the game.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
We had a plan of what we were going to show, and then you just keep
oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. No, it's for the next stream. You'll have to invite us again.
Just the pheromone system talk. That's it.
I definitely want to talk about this. So
yeah, please.
I'm just kidding. So when you walk around, I kind of have a device system I can turn on here, which is super cool.
What?
So here we're seeing kind of, this is where I've been walking around, and that's where we kind of leave pheromones, as we call them. So this, every like green spot here is actually, every tile gets a value, and then every frame, I think, is then that value just decreases. So eventually this will disappear. It's not super clear, but this one is slightly dimmer than the ones over here. So if an enemy walks here, then it can actually pick up like the trail here and start following you around, and then eventually get back to your position. So it's kind of a cool way to have like a pretty cheap pathfinding in that sense, that it can just follow you around.
Yep.
So I've seen some streams where like you can see that it doesn't really always take the closest path to you. I mean, if you can see if you've been walking around a circle and then to get to an area,
it'll start to walk.
Go through the same circle.
They're just following your scent, essentially, right? That's actually very creative. I really like that.
Yeah.
That's so smart.
But initially we had this like turned up more. Right now it happens kind of rarely, because it's again like it's super cool system. Turns out having enemies constantly harass you.
And I wonder if you build a wall on that path, will an enemy just start walking into a wall, trying to go through the rest of the path?
Then it actually stops.
Okay,
so it doesn't. But like we have the system where some or bunch of enemies like the can actually destroy walls, and they will kind of start doing that automatically when they're around. So it definitely can end up with them just still stopping, but then being like, oh, let's destroy this wall, and then they can go forward.
So is there going to be like a soap DLC that lets us the player like wash themselves and then have lots of pheromones?
Totally.
I mean, this is a system we can apply to enemies as well. So I'm definitely like wanna kind of look at this a bit more and see kind of what kind of cool things can we do with it.
So if you spend sorry, go ahead.
No, it'll just kind of, can this be an enemy that finds something and then tells someone else, okay, follow my pheromone to kind of find the stuff or something.
Yeah, but I think that was the initial idea. Yeah. But enemies, and then we're like, this is too much time. Let's apply to the player. That works. Things use for something. We didn't have time to keep working on more than that.
So if you spend a lot of time mining without walking into water or showering, do your pheromones get stronger and stronger? Do you get smellier and smellier as a character?
No, you have a constant smell.
Constant, always. Okay.
It's like you're always stinking.
Just like in real life.
Never goes down, ever. So.
Oh god. I was wondering when it came back to the lighting. Was the lighting the main reason you chose to have the 3D, 2D aspect to the game? Like, was that really the main driver for having the play between 2D and 3D?
Yeah, I remember like we wanted to use Unity's lighting system instead of making our own lighting system or making anything complicated. And one way to do that was to make the game 3D. I'd seen Enter the Gungeon posting about doing a very similar thing that looked amazing. So this was kind of an idea to push in that direction, and from there on we kind of made some new things with it, like the indirect lighting, for example.
And you customize. So is the indirect lighting built on top of Unity's lighting, or did you kind of write something from scratch?
It's built on top of the Unity system. That's also very important for us, because that helps with the porting and patching and different hardware and all these things. We don't want to. That's the same thing again. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to work iteratively. And if Unity can provide lighting systems for us, that's amazing. And then we can use them inside of the game directly instead of having to do our own.
And I'm curious, are you using point lights, or are you using multiple spotlights to imitate a point light? What approach are you taking?
I think you can see the point lights to the right, maybe?
Yeah, it's actually all point lights. But it's a very good question, because we tried to do a spotlight approach first to limit the amount of rendering needed in all the directions, so to say, for them.
Yeah.
But in the end we just use point lights and try and then optimize that a lot instead.
Yeah. But point lights can be a little less optimal than using multiple spotlights.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's something we brought in Felix to help us on, right?
Yeah.
To instead of having point lights updating each frame, it only updates like whenever you break a wall or the shadows needs to update. So that's something he helped us optimize with.
Yeah.
So here you can see that like the player's point light updates every frame, but this one, but the static it doesn't.
Okay.
Right. Have you hit the like limits with the number of point lights you can place and stuff like that? I know with like traditional forward rendering, you know, you only get so many or whatever. Do you work to try to limit how many point lights you have on screen at any time?
Yeah, I mean, we have set the hard cap to 100 in Unity. How many are allowed to be rendered, and I don't think I'm not sure you can't have that many lights currently active on the same screen at the moment. You can put out 100 torches, but when there are like a bunch of torches in a group, we just disable some of the lights because you don't even notice it because there's so many lights on sources anyway.
Oh, so you actually have functionality in place to start disabling lights based on proximity?
Yeah, we have that as well on top of the optimization too.
Okay, smart.
Because when you have 5 or 6 lights, you don't even notice when you start disabling them. And it actually looks better as well, because otherwise it becomes so strong light.
Overexposed.
Really want them. Yeah, exactly. You do have some post-processing to handle that, but it still looks better to just disable them.
Typically enemies don't, like this one doesn't give away any shadow.
I'm sorry, did you just say giveaway?
Oh man,
I think now is a good time to actually do the giveaway. So for everybody who actually stuck around, I think so to be entered into the giveaway, you have to make sure you're following the channel Unity Tech. Make sure you're following Unity Tech, and then once the giveaway is open, and it'll say it in the chat, it'll say that the giveaway is now open. Type in, what is it? What do we type? Where is tin? So it's going to be where is tin? No question mark, all lowercase, one word. Where is tin? No space. No spaces. So throw that in the chat, and 5 people will be selected if you're and you'll be accepted if you're following, and if you typed in where is tin properly, you'll be entered.
I don't know if I'm impressed or horrified.
Yeah, and if you've actually typed it properly, you'll get a private message from the bot telling you that you've been entered into the raffle, so that's how you'll know. And then we'll announce the winners at the end of the stream.
It's funny to see all people posting this, because it's like looking at Discord again.
Yeah, while people are posting this,
look at that.
Does anyone want to mention why the keyword is where is tin?
Yeah, you want to let us exactly.
Yeah, definitely. So, the tin ore is something that's been apparently very hard to find in the game for many new players before you start to actually explore a bit further out. So it's been a very common question in our Discord, where people can find tin, to the point of where it almost became a meme, like where is tin?
Right.
Yeah.
And if we're completely honest, we basically effed up the balance of tin in the beginning. Yeah, like where it is in the world.
I see.
We have like an area where it's like here is tin, but then like the generation is kind of can put some few like tin ores in the starting area.
Yeah.
So people find out like one tin, and then they go through like the entire start area to kind of find it, when it should really just go a bit further.
Oh, I see. Okay. You kind of misleading.
Multiple issues with.
Yeah, I see.
Tin.
I love that Mike had to clarify in the chat that it's
Tin, not Tim.
Not Tim. Because where is Tim?
Yeah,
This is like someone on the team you can't find anymore.
Yeah.
Wasn't Tim supposed to work on that? Where is Tim?
The main character is Tim. No, that's not true.
So apparently it's in the clay caves. That's where the tin is.
Yeah,
that's what I hear.
We'll probably make more improvements to it.
Okay.
Put it online.
Tim is the protagonist in Braid, right? The game.
Is that his name? The protagonist
that is
has a
his
name?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Oh, I had no idea.
His name is Tim. I'm pretty sure.
That's so random.
I love that game.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's extremely
No one
random.
asks, how is tin?
They always ask where, Nice one, Fuse.
I still can't. I'm still not over that segue, Hassan, by the way. Just
Thank you.
Someone said giveaway. God damn. Like, that was... You were ready, man. You were just on it.
Oh, God.
Play of the game.
Play of the game. Yeah, we'll play that at the end of the stream. Okay, so I guess we'll end it in 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, Nero's thumb just made it. I see that. Okay, 1 and done. Okay, cool. So we'll close the raffle, close the giveaway. Thank you everybody for entering that, and we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna announce the 5 winners at the end of the stream. So yeah, let's keep going. Mike, want to take it away?
Yeah, so, we've been looking at this lighting stuff. This is great. We've seen the level streaming, which is really cool. And wanted to kind of talk a little bit about some of these core, mechanical features. Like you had mentioned how the level chunks pop in and pop out quickly. How did you achieve that? I know you said it was complicated, right? But how did you figure out this right size to get this to load smoothly, underlying systems and such?
I think the typical way to do it is actually doing larger chunks and kind of do it is more slowly. But we also have the requirement that you can have like a railroad going through the entire world that you kind of go through pretty quickly. So what we do is that you have like the data that is synced or sent from the server is a bit bigger than this, and then the reason it doesn't do the entire mesh at the same time is performance. So the data that the client has available is this plus a bit more, I would say, like I said, let's say half again the size of this, and then it's just doing kind of the minimal amount of work while still showing everything you're supposed to show on screen, pretty much. In that the system that we have, which is kind of a system that lives on since Radical Rabbits 2 and probably 4, I think. It's good, better at just updating the entire mesh than updating small. So if we can have like one frame where we update a small chunk of the mesh, it's good, better for performance as well.
Gotcha. And how far will it go in any direction?
Oh, you mean
you just keep going?
Are we talking about world generation now? Because, yeah, I mean it can go as far as you like, pretty much. Like eventually physics will kind of break down, but no one has gotten that far yet.
Challenge.
Challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah, we did fix while talking about that thing specifically, the rendering won't break, at least, because that was an issue as well we had with floating errors, where it becomes too bad precision when you're infinitely far out. But that's something you fixed, Max, by having the mesh rendering, the rendering whole thing is always centered at Origo in Unity. If you can move a bit, Max, there, and you can pay attention to how it stays at Origo. So it's always, that allows us to have high precision all the time.
We have a lot of small noise in the rendering, and that is the thing that kind of, if we have large numbers, then that doesn't really work. So we kind of had to keep that in mind. So we kind of try to keep the rendering coordinates smallish. So that is why we do it that way. And I was thinking I was gonna show I can turn off that one, that I was gonna show the world generation sprite.
Yeah, and real quick, just for the folks listening, what they're talking about, like as you move away from the origin in 3D space, right? You might be at an X position of positive 27,000 and a Z position of negative 160,000. And at that point, floating point math starts to break down and have a lot of errors and inconsistencies, which is this shaking, jittering, artifacting, stuff like that. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but this system here keeps your graphics at the origin. So exactly. It's the world that moves and you stay at 000 more or less, so that your numbers from origin always stay really small, which makes the floating point math very accurate.
Yeah.
It's all related to, floating points accuracy being proportional to the size of the floating point number. So if you have smaller numbers, then you have greater accuracy.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. And so thank you. I just wanted to clarify, because people listening may have been like, well, what do you mean by that? But and so, yeah, you have this actually really unique way of generating your dungeons. As you said, it'll go on forever. And so, mind digging into that a little bit?
Yeah. So we have, I'm not sure if I should show, I think I can show the the sprite. So initially, when we generate the whole world, we're sampling a shader pretty much. So we have this program that we run on GPU to get to know which tile, like on this position, what tile is it. And then we can, on top of that, occasionally have different scenes and different objects. But just what we're showing now here is kind of the base world, how it looks like. So I guess I should have said spoiler, but spoiler. I want to know kind of exactly how it looks like. So this is where we are currently, very much.
Yeah, the dirt one.
Yeah, and then as you move out, if you want to find tin, this is the area on the top here, which is clay, and the colors matches like what you see in the world pretty much. So yeah, I'm not sure if anyone, like David, you want to maybe talk a bit about this, or should I?
Yeah, I can mention just a little bit about it. So like you mentioned, this is calculated on the shader. So what you see here is not like CPU code, like typical code. It's just math, basically, with noise, a lot of noise that you multiply and combine with each other to Perlin noise and Voronoi noise to end up with something that looks like rivers or lakes and patches of sand and rooms and so on. And yeah, like you mentioned, Max, this is like the base foundation for the generation of the world, and on top of this we add a lot of CPU generated, like handmade content as well, that we just sort of slap on top of this and override it. Make it fit into the
and that can also be procedurally generated. Like it can be custom, that we have handmade it, or it could be procedurally generated, or it can be a hybrid thereof.
Yeah. And you used dots for the procedural generation, is that correct?
Not this one. Like
for the dungeons that will show a bit later. But for this one that we'll look at specifically right now, that's just shaders, so it's not using dots.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
That's
specific. So I cheated a bit and made us discover the whole world just so we can look at this a bit. So here you see, if you match kind of, this is the world that we have, and you match it to the shader. Now I'm scrolling at both places, which is not what I want. Then you can see kind of that, okay, this is actually where it comes from. Here we can see, okay, we have changed the world a bit, but we can also see that, for example, this part here, that one doesn't exist in the shader, and this is something that we, via dots, generate on the fly. So we can use this as a base, and then we have these different scenes or dungeons, as we call them, that we kind of, stamp into the different places.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and while looking at this map, people can maybe pay attention to that there are like black squares. If you zoom out a little bit, Max, because we don't generate the whole world at once, because the world is infinite, so we can't do that. But the world is continuously generated as you travel in the world, and then we use seeds and just predefined locations for certain scenes that must exist sort of in the world. But otherwise everything is sort of generated on the fly.
And that's very different to what many games do. Most games, generate the whole world in the beginning, so you have a long loading screen, and then bam, you're in the world and it's there. But we don't do that.
So two people playing this game, will they have the same world beyond like the starting area, or since it's sort of generated, will they have different worlds?
It's different every time.
We got a question from chat. Zero Gravitas asks, what gets generated first, the scenes or the procedurally generated terrain?
The procedurally generated terrain, but it is kind of sort of at the same time. Like technically it's the terrain and then the scenes, but it is during this same frames, because it is generated at once, so to say. When you come into a new area,
I see.
Actually, and then, it's a bit like it's the scenes first, I would say.
Okay.
But it's very much like you have this like base generation that we call it is actually just generating stuff that isn't there. So that's why it's lost. That if we have a scene generated, then that will not get overwritten, and then it just fills out. And an interesting point is that it's kind of the same way here. We have to be to be developed, I guess, biome. So you can't actually get to this place. So this is kind of a placeholder right now. And in the same way, like when we actually add the stuff here, it will just get filled out by the generation.
Yeah, it's the desert biome.
Yeah.
No, that's not that's official.
People have figured that out.
I was trying to be sneaky.
No. It's official. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna mention as well, the reason, if you look at this, it's very automatic, like what is generated. As soon as you start touching, like changing something in the world, then we just, okay, like this is the first time we touch this area, submap as we call it, then we do a full generation, just fill out that place. So the reason why, like here, we have only been here, and here we have a bunch of generated stuff. But this is like one of the bosses, the kind of, again, spoiler. it's something goes around there, like in a circle.
Right.
And the thing that this one does, as you can see, that it changes the world when it does this. So at the start, it hasn't actually generated this circle that just goes around, and then as it generates, as it changes stuff, then we do the generation on the fly. So it's very automatic in that sense.
Yeah.
So there's a clear order of things, essentially.
Nice.
There's another question from Mo D. Hart asking, what other noise do you use besides Perlin noise?
Voronoi noise is another one we use in the shader. Especially that's mostly for the water, I think. And I give the pits as well, I guess, which for people who are used to Voronoi noise might see it if you look at the map.
With pit, you didn't say pizza, just to be clear that you said the pits, which is the kind of black void areas.
Yeah. There are no pizzas.
It would be nice to generate pizzas in the game.
Yeah. No pizzas yet. Spoiler alert.
We have some pizza fans on the team, so.
Yeah, there you go. And so, as you're expanding, you're generating new areas, you're just sampling, kind of from this map to generate the new stuff, or that's cool. And then how do you ensure they stitch together and fit and things like that?
I mean, that's the generation. So that's why we have like this big single shader that does it. So if we just if you look at this shader, if you sample from this shader, then everything will fit together, because it's from this single shader. I'm not sure if I'm making a lot of sense.
I think maybe you meant like the custom scenes and dungeons that are like slapped on top of this. So maybe we can show a custom scene. I don't know if we want to show more in-game. Otherwise, we could move over to do custom scenes and dungeons so people understand what we talk about.
Yeah, let's do that.
That'd be good. Yeah.
Let's do that. I can just mention that I thought that would be a bigger problem with, if we just add a custom scene on top of something, like it would look weird. In most cases, it doesn't. It often looks like super cool, like someone that's really thought through this, like it's supposed to be here. But it just
worked out nicely.
Yeah,
exactly. You can have a little scene that is like a house or something, and then you just spawn it in the world in the middle of water, and it suddenly changes the whole context of it. Like now it's a little house in the middle of a sea. It's pretty
nice.
Cool.
Let's see if this does something. Now we are away. Yeah, so here is I can turn off the light. Can I see it better? I'm not sure if there's something specific you want to see in terms of like which.
I think this one is good. Yeah.
So nice. This is kind of like I can show the different settings. This is very much a tool I made for generating dungeons. So in that sense, it's if there's something we want to improve with this, it's that it is like a tool by engineers for engineers in a way. And we really want to make this a bit more user-friendly. But there are a bunch of different settings here. It's very much graph-based, so we kind of place a few nodes and then connect them via different algorithms. So we can say, okay, make a minimum spanning tree out of this, which means minimal amount of paths between these nodes to create, to connect everything together. And then often we have like a main room where we kind of say, okay, this should be less long path as possible to this main room. And then when we have set everything up, we have a seed which we can just change, and then we get like a completely new dungeon each time.
So this is what the dungeon we're looking at right now with rooms and paths that is generated, and it's the same code running in runtime when we generate them. And we can, if you zoom in a bit on the bottom right corner of that map, we can even see that we have handmade scenes integrated into the dungeons as well. So this one is handmade by Julia to look a bit more cool and interesting, because it can be hard sometimes to achieve everything you want with just procedurally generated stuff. I think mixing it up is the best sort of solution to make it very interesting to explore the world.
So some designed elements with some procedural element. And so is it like done in chunks where there's designed chunks that are then procedurally like positioned?
Filler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So that is room there is a design chunk that is just procedurally added to this whole dungeon with other rooms that are not handmade.
And did you look at any other inspirations, games like you mentioned Gungeon earlier and taking the 3D, 2D inspiration from that? Did you look at maybe the way they did procedural generation or just other games?
No, but we looked a lot at Dwarf Fortress.
Oh yeah.
We didn't use a lot of inspiration from that game. Like we didn't use the things that they do, but we definitely looked at it and okay, so could we do this? And we were like, no, that's it doesn't really
I see.
apply to what we are doing.
It helped get the design process started.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's an amazing game. So it was a nice inspiration.
Gotcha. And so you had mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's a very homemade tool in that sense. We didn't use a lot of inspiration in the implementation of it, and it was very much driven by the Hive Mother that you mentioned earlier. Like it had to have like this big dungeon, and then we were like, okay, how can we make a tool to generate this? And then it is a tool that we've used for a bunch of other stuff as well.
Oh, right on. And so earlier I brought up dots thinking it was for this other thing, and you mentioned for the dungeons and stuff. So are you using dots to generate these, or trying to just kind of narrow in where that came into the game creation process?
Yeah, like just dots in general is something we use for pretty much everything on server side. And since this is a generation that is done on server side, the procedural generation sampling, the base procedural generation is like one of the few examples that isn't, and that is because all the rendering, if we use the built-in renderer and the normal stuff, so since that is just okay, do the rendering to get that off, that is why that's not dots. But for example, this rendering here, like when we preview it, everything is as it is in game. So the only thing that is different is that the objects are like this little guy here, he's a preview. So instead of actually adding the real guy with real logic, we kind of add a preview of it.
Gotcha. So it's all okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's very much pipelined like a bunch of dot systems that kind of first dot system that kind of places everything depending on what configuration we have, and then like we say, okay, here's a room of this size, then we have another system that either adds this manually created scene or just procedurally generates a room of a certain size.
Gotcha. And since that's all on the server side, then you use like the dots net code to then stream that to the clients.
I want to say yes, but no, it's like this is the generation, like when we send stuff to the client, it's never here's a dungeon. It's more like we, as I mentioned earlier, when you saw the chunk that's kind of streamed in when the player moves around, that is the only thing that's sent to the client. So it will get, okay, this tile is here, and the reason then on the server kind of does its own thing with generation without, like there is a common way of doing multiplayer procedural generation, that is that the client does generation as well. So they can just see, okay, here's a delta. We do not do that, so we just send everything from the server, pretty much. And a lot of players like to terraform everything and just change everything. So I think that's a good way for us to do that.
Gotcha. Fantastic. Right on. Awesome. Any other stuff you want to talk about here with the generation and stuff? Like, I've not gotten to too many of these dungeons here, or any of these dungeons, because I just keep dying to the stupid bosses. But, so, so yeah, I don't know. Like, how you went about these tools and stuff seems pretty awesome to like meet the needs that you have. So I didn't know if there's anything else you want to add. Yeah.
No,
Not really. I mean, it's definitely a tool we want to work more on to kind of get more out of it. Since right now it would work really well for what we want to do, but maybe having, because right now a lot of the most interesting stuff is the manual. Like if you compare this manual scene to this one, this is a bit more chaotic. And like, why did we put why is it blocked?
shares.
Yeah. So kind of having more granular tools to make this seem more like more real in a sense. It's often a bit chaotic when we do the generation, and then when we compare it to Julian's like beautiful scene here, it looks even worse. Yeah.
So I'm curious. Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say for some things it works great, but when it's a bit more complex, we kind of would need a bit more granular tools.
Sure.
So I'm curious if these tools going forward, like, are you still building tools as you're updating the game and adding stuff, or are these tools serving you well enough to just build content at this point in production?
We absolutely want to improve them. We do it now and then, but it's kind of a lot of focus on content right now. But it goes about a lot up and down depending on the milestones and so on. But we definitely want to improve on these tools and spend time on that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting insight for like all the developers watching. That like, yes, you can build your tools in the beginning, but you'll be improving them throughout and constantly improving.
Yeah, the nice thing with your in-editor tools is that you don't have to worry about breaking serialization of your own stuff, because it's our own editor. It's fine to break it for every team member, but when it comes to stuff for the players, you don't want to break stuff.
Nope. No. We did have a question come in here. How does a world know to place a boss a certain distance from the core or certain cities?
Yeah, Max can answer that.
Yeah, I can. Like we tell it to.
We tell it to.
No, but we have like I guess I can show that, or you want to show that. It's not super interesting, but it's like the, what do we call it? Dungeon. Like our naming conventions are not always perfect. I think it's called biome dungeons, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But so the question maybe is related to the fact that, as we mentioned before, that we generate stuff as you progress the world and explore stuff. But for certain things like bosses, we have set a certain distance from the core, and then it's just a random angle within its biome that you can spawn. So those are, you might correct me now, Max, because I know we have worked on changing on this a bit, but they are pre-spawned.
No, right? So this is the configuration of it. This is the start room, so it's the same, uses the same thing as the bosses really, and this one is just spawn it at where you go like 0-0. And we have like a checkbox which is always spawn, and those are always spawned at the start. When we added more stuff, we realized that spawning everything at the start took kind of a long time. The most obvious way to tell this was that if you start a new world and then exited, it just took a really long time to exit. You kind of wait for all the generation to catch up. But for most of the stuff, we have just a minimum distance from the core and a max distance from the core that we say, okay, here's where it should spawn in this dungeon or in this biome, I mean. And that's what we kind of try to find a position for that and then spawn it. But
when you get close enough to it, it spawns, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you need to be close to it unless we've said, okay, this is spawns from the start.
Nice.
Yeah. I can also clarify Zero Gravitas asked in chat, like even the dirt biome has dungeon-like slime areas, right?
Yeah.
And I can just clarify that the previous like dungeon regeneration tools we showed just a minute before, that's used for several places in the game, like the slime areas, yes, and the hive dungeons and the mole dungeons. Like a lot of these areas are generated through these dungeon generation tools.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think I can show some. So just to add to that, there is, apart from the boss dungeons, the unique dungeons that are kind of very important for progression, we also have kind of spawn randomly, like minor dungeons, let's call them. So they do not use this kind of spawn this from radius. It's more like, okay, here we can fit a dungeon, let's add a dungeon here. And it can be, when we say dungeon, it's like the dungeon is a word that, since it was like the Hive Mother Dungeon first, that's kind of what we call the system. But it can also be, I can show something that fits really well in terms of when we generate stuff. So this might not be super obvious what it is first, but you also have pits around this. So this is just a bridge area, as we call it. So it's just a little area with empty pits around it, and then some bridges. So this one works really. This is just procedural generation. So this one I think works great in just adding some cool stuff to the game.
Gotcha. And this would also just be called a dungeon, even though
exactly.
Exactly. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's nice. Dungeon is a word we use like internally within the team just to describe. Like it's a word we use that we never use in game, so to say, but within the team to describe it.
I'm sure a lot of other games. Well, like I'm sure we're not the only one that used it for something first, and that's the name forever.
I kind of used the World of Warcraft lingo there. Dungeons in World of Warcraft. That was kind of just the main inspiration at first.
yeah, and then the tool just turned into be useful for a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time to announce the giveaway winners. So we can announce all 5 of them. So if I call your name, you will be receiving a key to Core Keeper. So the first is Kakarot Gaming Tamil. Congratulations. DEQZ Snape. Congratulations. And then R1Z70. 0 spelled out ZERO. Congratulations. And then Nero's Thumb. And then Sirio_Killa. Nice. Great names.
Serial Killer.
Serial Killer. So congratulations to all 5 of you. JP Nintendo almost got a key but was not following, so was selected but wasn't following the channel, so the bot rejected it. Sorry.
That hurt.
Yeah.
Man.
But yeah, congratulations to everyone. We'll reach out to you with the key. Yeah, so I wanted to thank everyone on the team for spending so much time with us and going over all of this and sharing so much of your hard work on the game. I usually like to wrap up the streams by asking each of you, it's been a long journey so far. You've worked on multiple projects, and you're still working on this one, but still, you've released it to the public. Any final takeaways you've had looking back at the experience, or words of advice for up and coming developers? So just anything that comes to mind. I'll start with in order. We can start with Sven.
Yeah. So one advice I would have is to not take it too seriously. Have fun with it. Yeah. If you have fun developing a game, that's usually leads to great results. So, yeah.
Cool.
Oh, can I just add a comment to that? Because I think that's a really good advice. The Pugstorm name is actually one of the reasons we choose it. Is because we don't want to take ourselves too serious. To have fun. I've been one of these people who have been way too serious when I was younger. So the name was kind of a play. Okay, how can we make it more fun and less?
I like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of building it into the studio. It's like you're being too serious, and just remind yourselves, listen guys, we're called Pugstorm, all right?
Exactly.
Stop acting so cool.
Take it too seriously.
Yeah, no, I like that. Okay, and Max?
I think I can just say that, as long as you or echoing a bit like what Sven said, don't be too hard on yourself in a way. If you manage to just launch a game, that's a huge win. For us, obviously the big commercial success is Core Keeper, but before that we had Red Rabbids too, and that was a big success for us in terms of we made a great game, we got it out, but it also led to this huge success of Core Keeper kind of naturally. So don't as long as if you launch a game, that's a huge success, but otherwise just have fun with it and don't be too hard on yourself.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. That's very good advice. Be proud. Just be proud of the work that you're doing. essentially. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy to launch a game at all. All right, and David?
Yeah, I think similar as well, but more maybe towards the development part of it. Like working on a game, something I've learned is really like don't over polish stuff for starters. Like work a bit wide, get all the kind of base systems in place you want. Or even if you're just working on an enemy or so, get the base things in place and test it before you start polishing it. It's so easy to just dive deep into that enemy and you just want to complete everything, and the code should be beautiful and perfect and everything. And then you spend a week on it, and then it's like, but it doesn't work, let's throw it away. Like, do it very roughly, quickly, and then polish. And you should polish a lot once you know that this is going to be a thing, because polish is important. Once it's that's what makes the game feel good. So do polish when the feature is in place.
Yeah, I like that. So iterate fast and then make it good later. Cool.
Yeah.
And Frederick?
Yeah, I have two things I want to bring up. One is build a team where you have synergies with the other people that you're working with. Like find people who are amazing at stuff that you might not be amazing at.
Yeah.
Like for example, I'm very, fast thinking. I come up with all these ideas, and Sven is very analytical and careful, and so we have very good synergies there where we can kind of keep each other's backs, And when we have that, like with all the people in the team, it's such a nice team in the sense that people are very, very good at what they are good at, and then the other people are good at other things. So that's one tip, find people who you have synergies with rather than anything else. The second advice is just kind of echoing what David talked about, iteration. Like work iteratively. Like if you look at Core Keeper and Pugstorm, this is not something that we built over just one project or 1 year. Like it's an iterative company. We started with these projects way back, and before that we worked with mods and our own small crappy projects. I mean, it's a long journey, and you see the steps as more important than the kind of end goal, I would say.
Okay. Amazing. So build your team intentionally and keep iterating on your work. Okay, amazing. All great advice. There's so much to take in there. Fantastic. Thank you again so much for joining us. Mike, thank you for joining me this week. It was amazing. I hope we can have you back. I would love to have you back more often. And for everybody watching, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sticking around during the break and for sticking around for all 2 hours and 10 minutes of the stream. Make sure to follow us at Unity Tech for streams. We do weekly streams every Wednesday. Next week, we'll be doing a Let's Play where we're going to be playing smaller community games submitted to the Unity Play platform. So if you have a small game of your own, make sure to submit it to the Unity Play showcases. We'll drop a link to Unity Play in the chat. And we'll have some more creator spotlights for you very shortly. All right, so stick around. We're going to do a raid. We'll raid another Unity streamer, developer. And yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.